The best way to make sure you're winning games in College Football 26 Dynasty mode, whether it's online or offline, is dominating through recruiting. And I'm here to show you the best ways, as this video is presented by the EA Creator Network. Now keep in mind this is a work in progress version of the game, so some things are subject to change, but we're using Mizzou in today's video, a school that's kind of in the middle of the pack, to showcase everything you need to know about recruiting in College Football 26 to turn your team into a national champion. One of the first options you get is being a head coach, OC, or a DC. Just know that no matter which one you choose, you're doing all the recruiting and you're playing everything, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm choosing head coach here. You also have the option to use the current coach of that team, which is going to have a way higher level and be a significantly easier journey for you, or you can create a coach and play hard mode, which is what I prefer to do because you can actually make all of your abilities your own. Now, the big choice you have to make is for your backstory, whether it's a motivator, recruiter, or tactician. And some things have changed here, so I'm going to explain to you why I think recruiter is your best option to start to make sure you're getting the right recruits onto your team, but you cannot actually get another ability until you hit level 10 as a coach. Now, once you hit level 10, I think moving over to tactician as your second ability makes a lot of sense, and we'll explain why here in a few. Now, everything in this screen is something you should change, except for something to keep in mind here with alma mater and pipeline. Your alma mater, you can make this whatever school you hope to eventually be to, or in an area where you really want to specialize or increase one of your pipelines. And then for your pipeline, this should be either something to complement your current school or to complement the school or area you hope to eventually get to. Now, my plan here is with the alma mater, making it Mizzou, because we're staying with Mizzou for this video. That'll boost their pipeline there slightly. And then the pipeline of Central Florida is already a natural one for Missouri, which should increase that as well. Before you touch any of your abilities and spend any ability points, please look at your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator to get a sense of what they can do and what you don't need to double down on. So for my OC, I'm looking at his recruiter ability. I can see that he's got 2 deep for the passing game bucket, which is going to help out quarterbacks from a starting interest and taking less time to fully scout. And then the same exact thing for wide receivers and tight ends. But a bucket that's also very important is the strategist one. So from that ability standpoint, he has a boost of complementary visits for QBs, and visits have a bigger impact on quarterbacks. And again, the same thing for wide receivers and tight ends. We'll talk about tactician again here in a few minutes, but this is an important one to have, but this is all going to be gameplay related for him. And then on the defensive side, he is tactician, he is motivator. These are going to be more so off-season or things that are going to impact kind of gameplay as well. But the other one we're going to look at here is the architect one. Architect is a really important ability because yes, you can get some extra XP bonuses, but if you look at this one for the secondary, the big ones to look at are the bottom two. A chance to increase a random skill cap when leveling up, and a chance to increase the best skill cap with a conference or national title. So this means when a player has leveled up completely on your team, they have a chance to maybe get an extra spot or 2 to increase their ratings, meaning they can actually exceed what they normally would have been from an overall rating standpoint. Now, looking at Mizzou's roster, they do have a good senior quarterback, but some of the guys behind I don't necessarily love. So we're going to actually spend our points on quarterbacks taking less time to fully scout. That will stack with our offensive coordinator and make it a little bit faster to scout them. And for the other abilities, as you saw, strategist does make a lot of sense. There are great options here regardless of which position you want to go for. You just have to really cater that to the team and your style of play. But the other big ones here are going to be Program Builder and CEO. Program Builder has a couple of really good ones here. My favorite is Relationship Builder because it upgrades your school's best 2 pipelines by 1 tier. Then you can upgrade your school's 5 best pipelines by 1 tier. And then you can finally upgrade your school's 5 worst pipelines by 1 tier. You couple that with Strong Roots, which is going to boost your primary pipeline, boost the starting interest from recruits in your primary pipeline, and then boost recruits from your primary pipeline gain extra influences boost. If you can get these 2, which are hard to do because you have to win 5 playoff games to spend 125 points in any archetype, they are worth investing in for sure. And then for CEO, again, this one is very tough. You have to win 2 national championships and spend 200 in any archetype to really unlock this. This one has crazy stuff. You get the increased chance that a player upgrades their dev trait, spend a second persuade on a player if the first one fails. This is for the transfer portal. And you can kind of see these are incredibly enticing, as they should be, because you have to spend a lot to get there. And the last little bit on abilities, I have another video on my channel you can go watch that talks about abilities and the best paths to go for these. But if you start out with any of these, the next one you buy is going to cost you a little bit more. So you can see, for example, when we get to level 10 for tactician, we can then spend that for 20. But if we buy tactician, when we go to buy motivator won't cost 20, it'll actually cost 30. But again, keep in mind, you have to get to level 10 before you can buy your second ability. So you will be spending a lot of points in this first bucket before you even go to the second or third one. Now, when you're setting your recruiting board, I have a quick philosophy for you. 75% of your recruiting board should be your team needs, and the other 25% should be best talent available or players that maybe you're thinking of chasing to replace somebody else on your team. But one of the best things they added to the recruiting recruiting board this year is the team needs section at the very top. You can see offense, you can see defense, and how many players they want you to target for each specific position. Now, with all of that information, the first thing I want you to do is go ahead to your interest tab, and I want you to go ahead and press X or square, and it's going to sort by how many players or the players that are interested in you as the first option. So if you look here, you can see that Missouri is the #1 team for all of these players currently. You also need to be realistic with what your school currently is. If you are a 1.5-star program, you should not be chasing 5 stars. 5 stars are ones you should be chasing a little bit when you're a 3-star, a little bit more when you're a 4-star, and when you're a 5-star, go crazy. And your star prestige for your school, which can go from 1/2 star up to 5 stars, will actually impact the amount of hours you can recruit. So for us, we're a 3-star, we can add about 750 hours worth of scouting time. But for a much smaller program, you might be at like 400 and be struggling. For most people, you want no more than 15 to a maximum of 20 players on your recruiting board when it's all said and done. Scout as many as you can, but then dwindle it down to 15 to 20 to be realistic. When you have about 15 or 16 players on your board, especially this first week for scouting, because you're going to have a little bit more hours than you would once you're actually in the week, because it dwindles down week to week, go ahead and scout those players. So here, for example, I have a dual threat athlete, which is going to be a QB. So I should be able to scout him in about 2 clicks, whereas sometimes it could take you up to 5. The other big thing I'll tell you is that you want to sort of take in mind that a lot of the ratings and how they sort of have thresholds for those have changed. If you played last year's version of the game, there were really easy ways to get 90+ speed quarterbacks with crazy throw power and crazy abilities from the jump. That is not going to be nearly as easy this year. So this quarterback, for example, is solid. His speed is okay. His acceleration is really good, but his throw power is kind of so-so. I don't love his accuracy. But the more important thing is he's not a gem. He has no physical or mental ability, so we'll hold off on offering him a scholarship. Now, looking at DeMarcus Regis, a running back that's a 4-star, I feel a little bit better here. He's an East-West playmaker, which is kind of similar to the elusive backs you saw in College Football 25. He's got good speed and acceleration. His ball carrier vision and change of direction are in pretty good spots. He has one ability from physical and from mental side, so I feel like this guy's worth a scholarship. And then we find a guy like Emmitt Smith, who, funny name, but has a gem ability here, and then he's going to have quick step from an ability standpoint. This, to me, even though he's only a 3-star, is worth investing in because he should have a higher dev trait than normal, usually impact, sometimes star, as a 3-star. George Cummins is the kind of player you're looking for, though, because while he, again, is not a gem, he has a physical ability and pocket shield, but 3 mental abilities, which are going to help you so much as these players get a little bit older in their time and their tenure with you. Having clear-headed winning time in the natural is an instant scholarship offer, in my opinion. Now, something to watch out for, and something I wanted to make sure I recommended to you guys, is try not to add a ton of players from a specific position all at once, because if you do, there are players that have a playing time deal breaker. And if you add 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks, for example, and 1 or 2 of those guys have a playing time deal breaker, they're going to view you as going after too many quarterbacks, and it scares them away, and they will not allow you to go after them at all for that week. A super important screen for you each week is going to be your weekly advanced summary. So understanding where these guys are and where they ultimately rank. Now, keep in mind, it's going to say things like Tevin has reached his top 8 schools, which is fantastic news. Each player has different stages. They can be open, which means anybody can recruit them. Top 8, only their top 8 schools can recruit them. Top 5 and top 3, following that same logic until they ultimately sign with the team. There's also a hidden stage this year called recruit battles, where a team or a player gets down to 2 teams, and then they will ultimately choose between those 2 teams, but they kind of reset their progress to make them battle it out for a couple of weeks at a time. But with the transfer portal being absolutely insane this year, which we'll touch on, this is a screen that will make or break you. The pro potential right here, you can see that we have a lot of players looking to transfer because we aren't really getting players to the NFL. Playing time, these guys need to get more snaps to be a little bit more happy. Brand exposure, we need to win more games and win, bowl games or conference championships to kind of increase the brand exposure to keep them really happy. And when you see that screen and you're kind of confused about, well, why do these guys want to transfer? If you go to the My School tab on recruiting, you can actually go in and see the individual reasons why or what you need to actually increase to make them feel better. So with all those players looking to potentially transfer or being at risk of transferring, Pro Potential here shows me that it tracks the last 4 years of draft picks for your team at different positions compared to other teams across the country. So we have halfbacks, tight ends, quarterbacks, and another tight end they're looking to transfer. It's because, as you can see, there aren't first-round draft picks for us, or second or third or fourth or seventh for a lot of these positions that they care about. But if I adjust that to wide receiver, you can see that Pro Potential here, we have a second-round pick in the last 4 years, and we don't have a single wide receiver looking to transfer because Luther Burden just went to the NFL. Something to also note as you're going through your weeks of recruiting is that typically what the CPU is going to do is they're going to go as heavy as they can on a lot of the 5 stars, and then they will go a little bit lighter on 4 stars, much lighter on 3 stars, super light on 2, and super light on 1. 1 stars based on their prestige if they're a top school. Here after the first week, I went pretty hard after Jay Sauer and we put in 50 points, which is the maximum we could do. Texas, however, didn't go as hard because again, they're focusing a lot of their efforts on the 5 stars. We have a pipeline tier advantage here, so we should get a little bit more XP than they can per week on this player, but keep in mind, Texas eventually will lose out on some of those 5 stars and they will put more points on these guys. And if you're someone who played last year and you're saying, well, can't you get the ability to have more points on a player per week? You absolutely still can, but it's just much harder to do that now. If you look at your base recruiting things, you can again take less time to fully scout, increase starting interest, have transfers of that position more interested, and increase the chance to sway quarterbacks, which we'll talk about here shortly, or whatever position they might be. But to get elite recruiter, you have to sign 2 top 5 recruiting classes and then spend 50 in recruiter, which is, that part's pretty easy, but signing 2 top 5 recruiting classes will take you a minute. And what you'll see here is that if you unlock elite recruiter, you then get a boost to ideal pitch grades for that position. My school grades have a larger impact on that position. Recruiting actions have bigger impact on that position, and the one you really would care about here is you increase the weekly recruiting hours for that position. And yes, just like the other abilities, this is stackable. So if you have an elite recruiter on your offense and defense, then if you get it as well, all of those things stack to give you even more points per week for that position. Each week, there's 2 things you want to pay attention to just make sure you're on top of your recruiting. One, you want to see how you're comparing to the other teams week over week in terms of the experience you're gaining. So you have the normal part of the bar, and then you have the darker part of the bar, which is how much interest you've increased week over week. For Dakota Sisk, we're kind of close here to Michigan and Illinois. They're actually gaining a little bit more week over week than we are, but we're ahead of Minnesota. And when you look at D'Angelo Gay, we are absolutely killing it with him. We are having much more interest than Illinois at this point. But as we get to Daryl Robert, the other thing you want to look out for is, are they in their top 5? So here it's very easy to see. There's a green top 5 box, and top 5 is great because now if you go to your recruiting tab, you can schedule a visit and you can actually go ahead and do additional things besides send the house. But new this year is the ability to have location-based visits. So for Daryl Robert, he's in St. Louis, Missouri, which means he's very close to Mizzou. He's right in our backyard. A visit will cost 10 points for him. You can see for Joel Schott, for him, he's in Tennessee. His visit's a little bit further away. He's going to cost 15. And even further is Philip Coward in Texas, so that would cost 20. These can actually go all the way up to 40 if you have somebody across the country from you. When you schedule these visits, it's important not to schedule them too early because there are abilities in the game that the CPU coaches could have, or other users if you're playing an online Dynasty could have, that if there are a couple of visits before them, they actually get a significant boost to their visit because there were visits before them. And the most important part about visits are having complementary visits. You do not want to have just one player visiting in a particular week. You want to try to have a game that you think you can win or you feel pretty good about winning that has more availability for them. So for example, playing the Raging Cajuns won't do much, but if we send him to the South Carolina game and we win that one, it has a massive boost for us. Same thing for UMass, 1 tick here. If you go to Alabama, it is 3 ticks, and it actually has really no, deficit to us detriment to us if we actually lose that game. Whereas South Carolina, we're closer in ratings. If we lose that game, it could have a pretty big negative effect. Your goal here really is to find either 1-tick teams that you feel like you can win and stack it with 4 boosts or 4 players that have complementary boosts to them, or go to a big game like this and stack as many complementary boosts as well. But ultimately, you want to make sure you win. At this point, week 3 feels like a little bit too early, but we're going to go ahead and schedule Daryl Robert to visit in week 4 against South Carolina. And we're going to make sure we get someone else there to complement him, and we have extra time now because this visit is an extra week ahead. When you're selecting your visit, though, you want to try to find something on your list that has an A+, A-, B+, something in that range. If you don't, it's going to mean that the boost you get from this isn't as good. But we have an A+ here, which is the best possible, proximity to home, which is why I harp on recruiting people that are local talent for you. We now have the best possible visit, and we're going to add some boosts to it. Now, we also have a quarterback that is able to be scheduling a visit as well, Philip Coward, and we're going to make sure we send him for week 4 as well. And you can see that he gets a complimentary boost from Daryl Robert, which is going to be fantastic for us. But the issue we have here is that when we go to schedule his actual visit, there is no sign of an A+, A rated overall that we can actually use because the conference prestige one, he's not interested in. So we could either sway him, which we don't have a ton of time or the points to do that. So we go over to this overview tab. Every player has a deal breaker, so we can see his deal breaker is championship contender. It's a B+ is what we have. That means that he absolutely cares about that. So we go to championship contender, even though it's not a green check mark, we now know that he cares about it. We can select that, and that's our little cheat code to make sure that we know something that he's going to care about for his visit. Now, as we go back to Daryl Robert in the following week, we see that Notre Dame just had a massive jump. I believe they actually just jumped double what we had here. So we have to be really, really careful. They could actually steal this player from us. So his visit will be next week, but the big thing we can do is you can see 3 check marks now on an A+, B-, and B+ ratings. So we can actually remove send the house, and we can change this now to a hard sell, because anytime that you're going after a player, if the 3 check marks are in the A and B ranges, you're mostly going to be fine. So we can actually find which one that is. It'll be here. The hometown hero gives us program tradition, proximity to home, and championship contender. This now means, because we have a hard sell, that he's going to have a significantly higher chance to have a better increase for his interest. And then we make sure that we cap out all of our abilities here with 50 overall points instead of just using the 40. We add the extra 10. And now this should give us a much more competitive spot against Notre Dame. We have another player here in DeMarcus Regis who we are absolutely getting cooked by the Ohio State. We could potentially keep going after him, but with how much they're already doing and they don't have the same pipeline tier as us, they're actually lower and they're still cooking us. This is a player we would want to move on from. And if we look at Philip Coward, the guy that we've been recruiting, we can see that SMU is dropping down his board. We're kind of about to pass them at this point, but Oklahoma and TCU have an onslaught of stuff going for him. Oklahoma's also got a visit, so we have to be very careful for this guy. But the problem is, we could do send the house, which is what we have. We know he likes championship contender, but we have no other check mark available. So our strategy here is to try to take one of our top guys that is also going to be up for a visit. This guy's only going to cost us 10 to kind of help complement Philip Coward. Now, he's going to get a compliment boost to Philip Coward, but the wide receiver is going to give Philip Coward another boost, but the left tackle and wide receiver won't interface here as well. But still, we're getting something solid. Now, he's got coach stability, which is a B+, but he has playing time as a deal breaker, which is an A+. We can actually go down to playing time, select that as an A+, and now we're going to have that for him. And what we can also do now, because we know that he likes coach stability and then again playing time, we can actually go through and see if there are any that matched up to that we can work with. So far we haven't seen any on the first line. The second line gives us coach stability, playing style, and playing time, which would all be available. None of those are blocked. And if we keep going looking for one that has coach stability here, the only other one we're going to find is actually not there. So we now know that his actual coach stability, playing style, and playing time will be his 3 deal breaker options. We then get him back to 50 with a +10, and that should give us the best chance to land him soon. And then we also have a right guard we can kind of go ahead and use here too, because again, offensive linemen are only competitive if they're the same position, not if they're different positions. So Coward is going to have that boost along with Rodney, and then now our right guard. We're going to add those in, and the hope that we have now is that we win. Championship contender is the only one we know. It's a B+, so that one should be fine. And we now have 4 people visiting that week, which should give us the maximum possible boost. And after a big win against South Carolina, we get Daryl Robert, that wide receiver we were just talking about. And as you can imagine, Emmitt Smith, the right guard, another guy that was on that visit. A small tip I always try to give people as well is move anybody who is signed to your team up to the very top, just to kind of get them out of the way and remind you as you're scrolling down what positions you signed and the players that are there. And if you want to see the power of a visit, Philip Coward again had a fantastic visit and jumped all the way to #1 for us. And look at what we got. We had same tier opponent, a rivalry game, clear winner, which means we won by a significant margin. Daryl Robert got a complimentary boost for him. Rodney Fuada got a complimentary boost for him. He attended the meeting. He got every single possible point he could have gotten. That is the perfect visit that you're aiming for. Now for Philip Coward, we did a fantastic job of getting up to the #1 spot, but TCU has a tier 4 pipeline, which means that they're going to increase a little bit faster, even though they're putting probably the same amount of points in that we are each week. There's a good chance we lose this. We could have just enough time to hold off TCU, but we'll find out in this recruiting battle how it plays out. What you want to make sure you're doing though here is making sure you have your hard sell on, making sure you have any additional budget of time filled in. And again, we have an A- championship contender, B- program tradition, and B proximity to home. The only thing we could do here is use sway, but because this recruit battle was almost done, I wouldn't recommend taking away your best possible points. And all that time in the recruiting battle paid off because we again had our best possible options ahead of us. We were a little bit ahead of TCU, and that got us what we needed, a brand new QB. If you find yourself in a situation where you have a recruit and you're looking at trying to do hard sell after you've gotten into their top 5, and you're like, hey, I've got all 3 of my check marks, but you notice that even when you go down here and do it, coach prestige is a B+, conference prestige is an A+, but playing style is a D. That's not exactly going to be what you want to use, because that could actually hurt your recruiting pitch if another team tries to steal them. So what you want to do instead in this situation is use sway, and your goal here is to get 2 green and 1 red because you have the highest success rate chance. You could try doing it with just 1 of your green and 2 red to try to sway those other ones, but that's a lot harder, and doing it with no check marks is unbelievably difficult. This could happen over the course of 1 week. It could take 2 to 3 weeks in game, but you will find out if you can get this to work by an icon that'll show up, hopefully, in our following week. If you look at the very bottom below all these things, you'll see the little checkboxes kind of change to give you a visual indicator of how many you have. What I recommend you do is you look for something that you have 2 check marks in, and you try to sway a third option. And hopefully what that third option ends up being is something that is going to be equally beneficial for you. So I kind of go through and try to look for any time I get 2. This, for example, would give me conference prestige, coach prestige, and brand exposure being a B, which is much better than having playing style at a D. There's also an option here, which I think is better, of conference prestige at an A+, coach prestige at a B+, and championship contender at an A. So this is the one that we're going to try to sway, and we should have a much higher chance. Now, you are going to have, again, 20 points left over. So what I recommend you do is you go and do a soft sell, and do the soft sell to the option that you already have. Playing style being a D won't hurt you as much because it's a soft sell, not a hard sell, so you should still get a decent amount of points. And looking at this player in the following week, you can see that we were successful with our sway. There's going to be a little picture of a head icon with a light bulb inside of it next to his name, which kind of helps you understand that you got it to work. And as we go here, we can now see that he has 4 green check marks instead of the 3 that he originally had. So all we'll do is we'll remove our 20, we'll remove our 30 by holding down Y or triangle, and then we'll go here now to hard sell, and we're going to make sure that we do the one that has the championship contender, which I'm just trying to remember which one that was. It should be this one. So we have A+ conference prestige, B+ coach prestige, and A+ championship contender, which actually changed week over week because we won our game. And in this same week, we actually had a playing style issue with the strong safety we were actually recruiting. And you'll see that we now have a D+ playing style versus a C-. In the event you have something like this, do not remove this recruit from your board. It's different from being locked out. Your playing style can change week to week. So all you need to do is just hope that you do the things you need to do for this strong safety coverage specialist, and you should be able to recruit him again the following week. And if you're trying to figure out, well, what exactly do I need to do, just simply go to your My School tab, go to the playing style one, which is the first option, and we want to go to our strong safety, or our safety, which is the coverage specialist. It says defensive pass yards per game. It's a very high impact. We have 272 we're giving up a game. So if we lower that sum, that should make it so that he's more likely to want to be recruited by us again. Now, at the end of the regular season, we can go ahead and look at our top class. You can look at it at any week, but just kind of looking at where we are, we ended up getting the 13th best class in all of college football. But this is obviously before the transfer portal, which is going to be pretty insane. And the transfer portal has a lot of talent this year. You have over 2,000 different players in the transfer portal. Obviously, not all of them will want to come to your squad, but you still want to try to stick to your guns of how you were recruiting, and I'll show you a couple of nuances to change. Now, in this season, my coach obviously got a lot better, and I put a lot into our recruiting. So you can see that we already have quarterback transfers are more interested, running back transfers are going to be more interested, linebackers and defensive backs are all going to be interested more in the transfer portal, which is going to help us out a lot here. And you can really see that the transfer portal will make or break your team. There are so many talented players that are already available here. We can see that Alonzo Barnett out of JMU ended up transferring. They've got top-end corners all across the board, and a lot of the positions that we said we would get transfer interest from, they're here. I think it's important to take one last look at your recruiting board and just look and see what you ultimately got. At this stage, you can also see the development trait as you go through each individual player, and I feel like we had a really good recruiting class. We have an elite player in D'Angelo Gay, the dual-threat quarterback that we ended up getting. Coward, the other quarterback we got, this a dual threat, ends up being a star dev trait. And as you go through this, you're seeing elite devs, you're seeing star devs. I mean, another elite dev here in Jaleel Dirth. We really have a fantastic recruiting class. And so I feel like with as much depth as we have and a couple extra players here we're looking at, we can focus on best players available. I also want to call out that the right trigger, or R2 if you're on PlayStation, you can hold that down and go from recommended, which does a pretty good job, I think, this year. You can also go to any state, which will give you a full list of every single player. Now, obviously, Keldrick Falk was not available on the previous screen, but we can actually go after him now because we get a full list of all the players. A lot of them are going to have different deal breakers around pro potential or brand exposure or playing style. They kind of lock you out, but you can go through with a fine-tooth comb and figure out which players are going to be available for you. Now, the guys you get out of the transfer portal are typically going to be really good, but I still like to go through and just see what their abilities are, what their ratings are, and yeah, Keldrick Falk is an absolute dog. We're going to go ahead and offer him a scholarship. These guys, though, you got to be as quick as you can here. You want to give them 50 points. If you have more points to give them because you've upgraded abilities, definitely do so, but give them the max amount of points you can. And earlier I mentioned that you want to try to have your regular recruiting class around that 15 to 20 or early 20, low 20 range. That's because when you come to the transfer portal, you only have 35 spots available, and you really want to make sure you're working through and getting as many of the guys that are quality added to your board too. When you're in the transfer portal, some of these guys are going to not be able to be gotten. So for example, here, Keldrick Falk, we're not going to be able to get him because we don't have a pipeline tier. LSU is all into him, and they have a tier 3 pipeline tier. So even if we do a visit, we're probably going to be cooked. So I would look for guys that we probably have better opportunities for. And you also want to do the same thing of stacking complementary boosts. So looking at the players you have when you can actually have them come to campus, and also worry about the ability for a negative boost to happen if you send 2 players in the same position there as well. So the focus I try to do is look for the players that I absolutely want and focus on getting them their visits first. And I also try to never schedule the visit in week 1 because more often than not, it's not going to work out too well for you. So a guy like Isaiah Horton, we were actually absolutely going to do a visit for him. Right now, nobody else is giving him an offer, so I'm going to schedule our visit for week 3. We're going to go for championship contender for that one. We already know 2 of his 3. Pro potential is the other one, so we're going to feel pretty good about where we are with him. Now, the only downfall for that is that we don't have any players that I think are going to actually interface with him to give a boost. Running backs don't do it, offensive linemen don't do that, but it should still be fine for him. We have a right guard here that we want to obviously do, so we're going to put him for week 3, and we know that he has conference prestige as one of those, so that will put him in a great spot and will help us battle Michigan as well. And then we go down to the running backs that we kind of looked at. I believe our favorite one that we had here, none of these guys were like world beaters, but Darius Taylor seems pretty solid. He's got, again, decent speed, pretty high acceleration. Ball, I think, is going to be pretty good. He's going to be a sophomore where he's going to be a junior. So I actually want to focus more on Jason Ball, who came from Ohio State, and Kentucky's kind of pushing at us as well. So we're going to move him to week 3. It is to be noted that in this version of the game, it's a work in progress build. The week 3 details showing complementary boosts aren't actually working, but hopefully in your version, that'll be working as well. But we know we had a right guard there. We're going to focus on getting his conference prestige since he has an A+ in that spot, and that should put us in a great area to land him. And if you follow those tips, you can have a recruiting class like this. We ended up being number 11 as Missouri, which I feel like is pretty insane. We had 1 5-star, 19 4-stars, 8 3-stars, and 1 2-star. And what's cool about this is you can also break it down by recruits. So from a recruit standpoint, we were number 11. From a transfer standpoint, we ended up being number 14. We ended up getting 10 transfers, but as you can see, some of these other programs, Arizona State got 20 transfers. Some teams got up pretty close to that as well. And in the portal, we landed in some pretty big names. I mean, Jason Ball out of Ohio State. We got Isaiah Horton as well. Donovan Platt, Jericho Washington Jr. This is really where you can actually change the DNA of your team. Even though you might lose a lot of guys each year, you can also gain a bunch as well. I hope you enjoyed this recruiting tutorial, and if you did, make sure you leave a subscribe on this channel because we're trying to get closer to 300,000 subs before the end of the year. At the end of the day, I'll have more tutorials just like this, including coaching abilities and so much more. Make sure you leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Be safe, be smart. Tell somebody you love them. Catch you guys on the next one.